Hey folks, Damien from Southpaw Designs. And if there's one thing that I've figured out in my business journey, whether it's my previous business in web development or my current side business in woodworking, it's that you need unique ideas to set you apart from the pack. And so that's what we're going to look at today. We're going to look at a pretty standard project that you can create on your own that has a couple of unique features that sets it apart from the pack. So let's go ahead and dig right in. So to begin with, let's mill our wood. I'm using the DeWalt 735 planer. I love this. I just upgraded to it. I'll put a link in the description if you're interested in checking it out. And I also want to cut this down to about a ½ inch thickness. Now I don't have a good enough bandsaw to resaw, especially something as hard as walnut. So I use my table saw to do that. Be very careful if you're using this method. Notice I am using a push stick. And in watching this video, I did notice that I think the push stick is too close to the blade. So I need to pull that up a little bit. So just keep that in mind. All right, let's go ahead and sand our wood down. Now to get rid of any of those blade marks, I'm going to sand it with an 80 grit, then a 120, and then I'll raise the grain and sand to a 220. That's the way I prefer to sand walnut. And let's go ahead and cut it down to our final sizes right here. Once we have all of our pieces cut, and I'm not giving you an actual diagram or file for it because you can tweak this however you want to. But I'm going to have 3 different sections, and I just want to make sure that everything kind of lines up and matches up. I've also cut some extra pieces down there, as you can see, that'll be used for some trim. All right, next step is to cut our miters. This is how the box is going to be held together. And now let's go to our router table and cut some slots. This is where the separators inside the caddy are going to sit. And right here on the front, we're going to put a couple of dados right there, and you'll see what we're going to do with those here in just a minute. To assemble everything, I'm just going to use some blue tape, lay everything out, and then perform a simple glue up. Now I'm not closing this into a complete box because of the faceplates that we're going to look at here in just a minute. I'm just doing the front 3 sides, and then we will glue the 4th part right into one of those dados. Is that a dado or a rabbit? I always get them confused. I think it's a dado. So let's just simply glue up the rest of our. Now you may or may not want to actually glue up your inserts. You can always just drop those in. I think it would be just as stable either way. I chose to go ahead and glue it up. Notice how I'm not using the outer dado yet. That's going to be for our faceplates. And I left a little extra room. I could possibly trim that bottom or that top out. And it turns out, after thinking about it, I really don't need that tape on top anyway, so I got rid of that. And now let's clamp it up and let it dry. Got a couple of knot holes inside this base, and so I'm just going to use some epoxy to fill those up. Always like to take a lighter or a torch of some sort and get any bubbles out of there. So now let's start assembling everything together. The base is going to be a solid piece of walnut, although I think I would rather do it different and actually have a slot. And we'll talk about that more here in just a minute when we get into creating our faceplates. I don't have any straws. Straws are good for getting rid of extra glue, so I'll just use a marking knife, which allows me to get in those corners. And now let's go ahead and cut the trim that's going to serve as the top to cover up some of our cut marks. Now for this, I'm just going to use some CA glue, put everything together that way. And then I'll use wood glue to attach it to the top. I'm going to try to stay away from using any kind of brad nails because this is a small item. Also, the wood glue should give it plenty of stability. And I'll use a little CA glue just so it'll solidify very quickly and give me a nice tight finish. Okay, from there, let's go ahead and start making the faceplates. Now, this is actually just a mess up from a previous project, which is why you want to hold on to those scraps, because as you can see, that's a clock face that I was working on. So now, what's the unique little twist that we're talking about here? It's the fact that I've created several different faceplates that can easily be swapped out. Now, to start off with, I just have a simple one that says utensils, and then another one that has my last name, and it can easily be dropped in. But the cool thing about this is that you can take this same idea and apply it for different holidays. You can have a Christmas face, you can have a Halloween face, you can have a summer face, fall, autumn, spring, so that you can constantly be changing these out to give your buyers a unique showpiece in their house that looks different with every season. All right, now let's move to the CNC. This part's optional, but I really like this. This is the part that's going to set this project apart from somebody else and add that unique feature. While the CNC is doing its thing, let's go ahead and sand off our top there. Get rid of those sharp edges. I like to have just a little bit of I guess you'd call it a bevel or call it a chamfer on there, but I just use sandpaper because I want it to be very slight. Now, once the faceplate's done, let's pop it off of our CNC. Move back to our table and use some black epoxy to fill that in and make it look nice and pretty. We'll do the same thing to our second faceplate. If you notice, to get into those small little areas of the letters, I'm just using a toothpick. Actually, it's not a toothpick. It's a little scrap of wood that really is just a toothpick. Now we'll let everything set up overnight. And I like to use Odie's oil on walnut. It's natural. I love the smell of it, and it really makes walnut look beautiful. Now, what else can we actually do with this other than just have a typical caddy? So how could you take this design and actually tweak it just a little bit to make other things out of it? Number one, you could make it a little bit smaller, change the design a little bit, but keep the idea of the unique face plates and turn it into a key rack and mail letter holder. Number two, we could easily change the size of a couple of these sections inside and turn one piece of it into a knife holder. Now, an easy way to do that is just to buy a whole bunch of bamboo skewers. You can get them in packs of thousands and fill one section with bamboo skewers packed pretty tight, and then you're able to just set your knives down inside of them. So you've created your own knife holder instead of having to have a knife block with the slots pre-cut in. Now, another option that you can use to create this a little bit more unique, and one thing that I'll do in my next iteration of this particular project is, instead of having just the face plates that sit off to the side, I'm going to redesign this a little bit so that there will be an empty pocket either on the side or possibly in the back, that when I'm not using the extra plates, I can just slide them into the caddy so that they're always out of the way. Now, this would require me to maybe make it about an inch taller if I had 4 or 5 different plates, but that's something that you can easily adjust instead of having the solid bottom like I do right here. And as always, if you feel that I've earned it, I'd appreciate a like down below. Leave a comment, even if it's just saying good job or this could be better. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't. And please watch till the end, because those metrics tell YouTube that this is valuable content and encourages them to push it out to a wider audience. And always, I put links down in the description for any of the tools or materials that I actually use. They are affiliate links, so if you do choose to buy any of them, I'd appreciate it if you buy them through those links. That's a free way for you to support this channel. Buying through those links costs you nothing extra, but it does support the channel because I get a small commission off of those sales.